Both Asana and Microsoft Teams have excellent collaboration capabilities. Which one would you choose for the project management? In this tutorial, we will start by building an Asana project plan, and then we will try to build the same project plan using Microsoft Teams, so you can compare for yourself. Let's go ahead and get started. A lot of times, instead of starting from scratch, you would like to take advantage of existing templates. Let's take a look at all project planning templates Asana provides to you. A lot of times, you might consider creating a new project from existing template in Asana, based on the pre-built templates that's already available. There are multiple ways to do it. One of the ways is click on the Product Plus sign here, and another way is click on the Product Plus right in this area. When you clicked on the plus sign, you need to select Project, because this is what you will be creating. And there are three different choices. You can create blank project, you can use template, or you can import spreadsheet. We are interested to explore how to create project from the template. Most of the time, when you're building project from the template, you already have a predefined work stream or a process, which you're just trying to track in Asana. Because of this, you need to select the project based on the work type or product. This is an Asana terminology that is being used. And the good thing is that Asana supports most traditional work streams. Let's look at each process and each work stream supported by Asana, where template is provided in more details. The templates are organized in the popular section, as well as in the type section. Type section contains templates based on the process and based on the project type, and popular section contains project templates that users select most frequently. As you navigate through the available templates, in the middle of the screen, you will see how your dashboard is going to look like in Asana after you select that particular template. It is simply amazing the variety of choices that Asana provides to you for the work stream tracking. Almost all the situations you can imagine in the work environment can be captured in Asana and tracked in Asana. There are different dashboards available based on the work type. For example, if you click on this drop-down box, you see that the types might be marketing projects or product, which was selected for us by default, where most likely you will be doing product in the agile or waterfall manner. You also have access to design project templates, as well as operations, sales, customer success, HR, IT, engineering, and cross-functional. Let me switch back to the product type, and we will explore most common project types that might be used in your organization. So, what is a product in a business environment? Typically, it is a solution which delivers value to the customers. Typically, you need a project team to deliver this solution. Some of the product samples might be building e-commerce site, doing a hardware upgrade for the organization, or doing new operating system rollout. Typically, for these types of projects, you might consider building a project plan, and Asana provides you with the good option. Also, you might consider running it in Agile, and Asana also provides you a good option for that. For example, you might be doing sprint planning here, doing sprint retrospective, and you also have choices to do stand-up meetings. All of this concept very familiar to people that use Agile. As we finish the development of the product, we might uncover some defects, and Asana provides you a tool to do bug tracking for the defects. Asana also helps you support product launches, because there is a board for that as well. And if you're a good project manager, you're always concerned about customer feedback. And you're always concerned, how can we get it? How can we track it? How can we implement it in our product? And for that, you have a customer feedback board as well. If your product has continuation, meaning that you will continuously improve it phase after phase, you might consider building product roadmap. And Asana has a board for that as well. And if you have a large team and your project runs over many months, you might help your team members set team goals and objectives. And there is a board for that as well. Because of this flexibility and variety of choices, using Asana is ultimately an excellent choice when you're building your product, because your product building lifecycle is supported in many different dimensions. But for the purposes of this demo, I would like to select the product project plan and use this template to create a board. As a next step, you need to select the project name and I typed in hardware upgrade. This is the name of my project. And the last choice you need to make is decide on the privacy level. Do you want to make this project available to everybody on the team or make it private to particular project members? I'm going to keep this project public and then click on the Create Project button. As you can see, new project that was created shows up on the left section in Asana, along with other projects that I have available. I specifically wanted to choose non-traditional hardware upgrade project because it doesn't really seem that this is a product. But hardware upgrade really helps you deliver new hardware for the organization and helps people start using new technology to become more productive. When you use template, Asana helps you organize work in sections. This particular template has a planning section, milestones section, enhancements needed, as well as results. You can view this section and pretty much all of this information in multiple different views. As you can see on the top, I'm looking at this information in the list type of view, but you can also select board view, which mimics Kanban board. You can select timeline, where you can see traditional Gantt chart view of the project, as well as you can select the calendar view of the project, where you will see specific tasks in the calendar format. Another cool thing to consider when you're creating project from the template is that you can create organizational template. The best way to do it is save one of your existing projects that you built in Asana and make it and maintain it as organizational template, allowing other people on the team, other project managers, to use it when they create their own projects. A lot of times, you may need to create a very simple project plan in Asana. One of the simplest way to run the project is using Kanban board. Let's go step by step on how you can take advantage and create Kanban board style project plan in Asana. It is very easy to create a new project plan in Asana. Once you log in into the application, all you need to do is to click the plus button and select a new project. You're presented with the screen in 3 different choices: blank project, use a template, or import a spreadsheet. Using a template is the easiest way to create a new project, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to start from scratch and select Create a new blank project. The title of my project is WooCommerce Implementation on the WordPress. And once I selected the title, I can choose a default view. There are 4 different views, and you see samples of the views on the right-hand side. The default choice is list view. You also have a choice of board view. If you're interested in Kanban boards, that might be a good choice. If you know the Gantt charts, the timeline might be a good choice. Or if you just like the calendar, that might be an excellent choice for you. I am going to choose the board view because this is the best view for the small projects, at least from my experience. Last but not least important consideration here is the privacy setting. You have 2 choices. You can make this project public to everybody on your team, or you can make it private and only have visibility to this particular project yourself. I'm going to choose the public to product, and product is Asana's concept of where you make it public to the product. Public to product is the default choice here on the list. And this is what I'm going to keep. Once I'm done with the settings, I'm going to click Create New Project. Once you set up a new project in the tool, you get to what's called the Kanban view. You might heard a different terms for that, but that's ultimately the idea of simplicity. Kanban view works very well if you are just one person or if you have a small team. Let me explain. There are only 3 columns here: to-do column, in progress column, and then a complete column. For every task that you create, you keep all initial tasks in the to-do column. And in fact, Asana gives you a default task 1. You can add new tasks in each and every section. So let's see what we can do with task 1. I'm going to click on the task 1 and make necessary updates. Because my project is to build an e-commerce store, the main task here is to design product offerings. Actually design what I'm going to be selling. And that's what this task is all about. I need to assign it to somebody. And in my case, I'm just going to assign it to myself. I also will benefit of setting up a due date, because this is what project is. It's something that has the end date. So ultimately, what you need to do is drive your project to the implementation. let me set the end date for that particular task. I am going to pick July 20th. This is a good date because it gives me time to build the product offerings for my e-commerce store. Next field here is the dependency. But because this is the first task I am creating for my project, there are no dependencies. That's just the first one. Maybe for the next task, I will be able to set up a dependency and make it dependent upon completion of this particular task. Moving forward, the next field here is the description. I'm going to add the description real quick. And ultimately, my description shows what actually needs to be accomplished as part of this task. The key for this task is to complete research based on the demand for the ebooks on the topic of artificial intelligence. You need to understand the sales volume. You need to understand the content that is offered in those particular ebooks. You need to understand authors that write about this, as well as the competition. The cool thing about Asana is once you entered all of the values, you don't even need to click the save button, because it's all saved automatically. All I did right now, I just clicked on other available field in my browser. So now we have a first task. Let me explain to you what we see on the screen. We have this task in the column to do, which means I haven't started working on this particular task. As soon as I start, I can drag it into in progress. And that's the indicator for other people, or even for myself if I'm the only one working on this project, that I'm currently working on this task. Once I'm done working on this task, I can just drag it to complete section. And that's ultimately what's called a life cycle for the task in my project. Typical successful project, from my experience, has 7 different phases. The first phase is project initiation. This is where you build your project plan. You decide on financial viability. Ultimately, viability is something where you ask the question, is this something that's going to help me, this particular project? That's the most important question. Is it going to help my business? In the next phase, you decide how you would do a proof of concept. Ultimately, you do implementation on a smaller scale. Step 3 is go, no-go decision. Are you making a big investment? Are you deciding to move forward? And everything that you learned from the proof of concept in the main implementation of the project. Phase 4 is the design phase. This is where you designed what you're going to implement. Phase 5 is where you build and test your product. Phase 6 is the actual launch. And phase 7 is where you're deciding how are you going to continue with this project. Are you going to continue and do small enhancements, or maybe large enhancements? Are you going to keep the team on board, or are you going to stop at this point and decide where are you going to invest your money and energy next? The view that I'm showing you here is very cool for the small project. But imagine the large team. And this particular view works extremely well for just one person or small team, I would say under 7 members. But imagine the team of 100 members. This is where you would benefit from the structure I just showed you with the 7 key milestones. And the best thing about Asana is that it allows you for the flexibility. Let me switch to another project, and I'm going to scroll down and select another project on my list, which is called Create an E-commerce Store. And I'll show you how in a different view you can add all of these sections into your project plan. We are looking at a different project, and we are looking using the different view. To avoid confusion, let me switch to the board view to remind you the same view we just had. But instead of to do, doing, and done, we have project initiation, doing, and done. Ultimately, if we switch to another view, to the list view, this is the view that we get. An equivalent of the section here in this view is an equivalent of the column in the board view. That's how simple it is. And ultimately, all we need to do to set up this structure with the 7 key milestones is just take the content of the 7 milestones and create section for each individual milestone in Asana. And you can do it in any view that's available in Asana. For example, project initiation column matches the key milestone 1 on the list. So if we really want to set up the structure in Asana, our next step would be to modify section 2 and call it proof of concept. And doing it is extremely easy in Asana. You just type on the section title and change the content. You can do exactly the same thing for the column 3, go, no-go decision. Let me just switch you to the list view so you can see that every change that I made in the board view will be reflected also in the list view and in any other view. It's just the same data that's shown differently. Now we ran out of sections to change, so all we need to do now is to add a new section. And you can also do it in any view available. Our next section in the list is Design section. All I need to do is click Add Section and add Design. And I can go through exactly the same steps for all remaining sections. And now let's take a look on how to create an effective e-commerce project plan in Asana. One of the best ways to organize project in Asana is typically by creating a project milestones and then putting tasks under each milestone. For example, in this project, there are 7 milestones: project initiation, proof of concept, design, build, test for quality assurance, launch of the website, as well as ongoing support and enhancements. Different activities typically performed in the different phases of the project. For example, as part of initiation phase, you typically research the platform, which might be out-of-the-box solution you're trying to implement. And you also make sure that you secure the funding to run the entire project. A lot of times during initiation, you also need to decide what kind of skills would be needed to successfully implement this project. And where would you find the right team members to help you implement this project. During the proof of concept phase, you do a small-scale implementation. For example, if you would build e-commerce store, you will try to go live with the small store, maybe selling instead of 100 products, just 10 products, or maybe selling the full scale of products, but presenting it to the smaller list of customers. For example, I'm in the WordPress right now, and I have access to the WooCommerce plugin. If we click on the WooCommerce, you see that there are a lot of steps associated with the store setup. And in fact, finishing the store setup might be a proof of concept. To set up successful store, you need to define store details, add products, set up payment methods, set up taxes, and personalize your store. A lot of times, capabilities of the particular plugin, like WooCommerce, would define the tasks of what you need to do for the particular store. Once you're done with the proof of concept, the next step is to do the design. During the design phase, you define how people are going to be using your store, and you build use cases. Then you're designing it actually by doing UI and UX, understanding how data is going to flow, and defining the technical architecture. During the build phase, you either customize the site or enhance and configure the technology that you selected as a plugin for your e-commerce store. For example, when setting up WooCommerce engine on WordPress, you need to consider what type of products are you going to be selling. There is the whole category of products in the WooCommerce, and you need to define categories, tags, and attributes for each product. For example, if we click Add New Product, you see the list of certain fields that need to be populated to define the product. It could be digital product, or it could be physical product. And if we jump into the product data, we see that you need to define regular price, sale price, tax status. If it's a physical product, you also need to consider inventory. If you need to ship this product, you also need to define the dimension. You also can define linked product to help customers better meet their needs, as well as promote cross-selling. And there are a lot of other fields like attributes, advanced, or if it's a digital product, maybe you have something related to the ebook store. Quality assurance for e-commerce store basically means that you need to test your store as a user. You need to come in, find what you're looking for, order this product, receive an email, and on the back end, you need to make sure that shipping works and you have a process for returns. Launching of the e-commerce store is typically a very exciting event, but you need to make sure that a lot of things got done before the launch date. You need to understand what is your marketing strategy, what kind of promotions are you going to do, how customers are going to discover your store among a lot of other stores, what kind of ads you might be running, and a lot of other things. And last but not least is a very important step. You need to define how you're going to do the maintenance of the website. You would need a team of professionals that will be fulfilling the orders and doing the shipments for the physical products if necessary. And you also need to decide if you're going to do ongoing improvements and who is going to be your team for that. If you went through the process of defining what you're going to be doing through this main 7 phases of the project, now you have the easy task. All you need to do is to understand what are you going to be doing as part of every phase. And once you understand that, you need to add task into Asana. When you create new project plan in Asana, it comes with some pre-built milestones as well as pre-built tasks. So tasks 2 and 3 are two of those pre-built tasks, and I already renamed the task 1 into Gather Requirements. We can add a new task by clicking Add Task button. And I'm going to write the name of the task here. My task is to complete research of WooCommerce plugin that is installed on the WordPress to better understand what exactly needs to be done to configure successful e-commerce store. Let me go into task details to better understand what exactly needs to be done. Here on this screen, I need to assign task to somebody. In this configuration, I only have myself. But in a typical project, you have multiple team members, and you would need to define who is actually going to be doing this work. And that should be based on qualifications and experiences. You also need to define the due date. You select the calendar and define by which date this task would need to be completed. I am going to select August 17th. In the next section, you need to add dependencies. Is this task dependent upon other tasks? And you see multiple tasks in this project, as well as in other projects that I'm running here in this system that you can choose from. I'm not going to select anything, but in a real project, there might be dependencies. In the priority field, you need to define what's the importance of this task. To me, it sounds like a high importance because we can't move forward without completing it. And in the status field, I am going to say on track. But you have two other choices, at risk or off track, and you can add your own choices by using the edit button. In description field, you typically define what's the essence of this task and provide additional details. The essence of this task is to identify required settings for WooCommerce plugin that need to be configured to make WooCommerce operational on the WordPress platform. Now, as we have this task configured, we can close the details window. And we can also delete task 2 and task 3. Or we can recycle them and put some other tasks instead of them. To delete the task, you hover the cursor on top of the task, do a right mouse click on your mouse, and select Delete the task. And the cool thing about Asana is that it allows you to undo if you deleted the task by mistake. One of the easiest ways to manage the project is to create a project plan in Microsoft Excel. Let's take a look how you can do it from scratch. I'll show you step-by-step instructions how to do it in Microsoft Excel. This is useful for any type of project. Let's go ahead and get started. To create a project plan file, you need to navigate to the Files section in Microsoft Teams and select New, Excel Workbook. I'm going to give it a name Marketing Project Plan and click the Create button. From the standpoint of Microsoft Teams, we just created Microsoft Excel document, so all the features of Excel are present and available to us. I'm going to zoom in by using the plus sign in the bottom right corner. In the first step, we will define columns for the project plan. Column A will be ID column. This will be a unique ID for each task in the project plan. Column B will define a phase, and we will have 7 phases in the project: initiation, POC for proof of concept, design, build, test, launch, and support. Column C will contain tasks for the project. Column D will define a status, and in the statuses, we will have not started, in progress, delayed, or completed. Column E will define who this task is assigned to on our project team. Column F will contain the start date for the task, and column G will contain the end date. Column H will contain hourly rate for the resource, and column I will contain units of measure, for example, hours. So this way, we can calculate the cost by multiplying rate by the hours. Column J will contain estimated cost, and column K will contain actual cost for the task. To make the document look more professional, we will highlight the row, make it bold, and we will assign a different background color. We will also expand column C for the task to allow us for the longer text. And in addition, we will select the values and assign borders for the selected region. We will also rename the name of the sheet in Microsoft Excel document. To do that, I'll double-click on the sheet name and assign a new name, Project Plan, to the document. Now let's go ahead and enter our first task. First task's ID will be 1, and the task itself will be to define marketing campaign goals. I'm going to expand the column width a little bit, so the task fits into the column. For the phase, this task belongs in initiation phase, but instead of typing initiation, I'm going to create a drop-down which will define all the phases for the project. Because we might create more than one drop-down, I am going to create a new tab just for the drop-downs. To do that, I'm going to click the plus sign, zoom in a little bit, and then I'm going to type all the phases related to the project. Phases is just the column header. I'm going to make it bold so we can differentiate it. And there are 7 different phases that's typically in the project. Initiation, POC, which stands for proof of concept, design phase, build phase, test phase, launch phase, as well as support. To create a drop-down in the main project plan, I am going to select the area which will have the drop-downs, navigate to the Data tab, click on the Data Validation, and then select Allow Values from List. For the source of the list, I am going to navigate to our other tab and select the 7 values in which we defined the project phases, initiation, POC, design, and etc., and click OK. Now I am able to select the value from the drop-down, and since our first task belongs to initiation phase, I'm going to select initiation and expand the column a little bit so it fits well into the column B. For the statuses in the project, I am also going to define the drop-down, and now might be a good time to make sure that it focuses only on the drop-downs. I'm going to click on the sheet and type the name. I'm going to give it a name, drop-down values, which will clearly identify the purpose of this sheet. We will have 4 different phases in our project plan. I'm going to define a column phases and then enter all the 4 phases into the project. I'm going to highlight the header of column B into bold, but instead of navigating back to the Home tab and selecting bold, I'm going to use Format Painter. To do that, I'm going to select the phases, navigate back to the Home tab, and select Format Painter. Format Painter ultimately copies the formatting from the cell A1 value, and I'm going to paste the formatting into the phases, into the cell B1. As you can see, it copied the formatting. And now I realized that the title of the cell B1 is incorrect. Instead of phases, it should represent statuses. I'm going to quickly change phases in cell B1 into statuses. And now we can go back to the project plan and define the statuses by selecting the range of D2 through D17, going to the Data tab, selecting Data Validation, selecting Allow List, and for the source, navigating to the Drop-Down Values tab, and selecting 4 drop-down values that we've defined for this project. I'm going to click OK, and now I can select the status for the task 1, which is not started. I'm going to expand the width of column D by double-clicking on the line that separates column D and column E. Now you can see that the value not started completely fits into the cell D2. But what I've noticed is that because of the expanding column widths, now not the entire project plan fits on the screen. I'm going to change the zooming a little bit, just to make sure everything fits. In column E, we're going to define the team members working in the project. And you might have guessed it. Instead of typing the names of team members, we'll create another drop-down. To do that, I'm going to navigate to Drop-Down Values tab and use column C to define team members. On my team, I'm going to have Fatima Patel, Nicole Jackson, Jason Smith, Ramesh Kumar, Xia Zhang, Anya Saharova, Sumita Reddy, and Mildred Ramos. In addition, I'm going to define a non-existent team member. I will call her TBD, which stands for To Be Determined. I will use TBD value when I don't know whom to assign. And now let's follow the steps and define the drop-down for team members. I'm going to navigate back to the Project Plan tab, select column E values from E2 to E17, navigate to the Data tab, select Data Validation, choose Allow Values from List, and in the source value, when I put cursor there, navigate back to the drop-down values and select all of my team members. After clicking OK, I can select the Assign To value. And for this particular task, I'm going to select Sumita Ready. Now is the time to expand column E a little bit so the full value fits, as well as navigate back to the drop-down Values tab and highlight in bold the team member's header. To do it, I'm going to navigate back to the Home tab and select Bold. To better define start and end date, we would benefit from having a calendar. There are multiple ways you can get a calendar. What I typically like to do, I like to create a separate tab and call it a calendar. In this tab, we can add the actual calendar, and most of the desktops provide you with the view of the calendar. I am going to navigate to my calendar and use Windows shortcut Windows Shift S to select the calendar for August and paste it into this tab, and do exactly the same thing for September's calendar. This way, I can always reference the calendar months and specific dates right inside my project plan. Having a calendar handy will help me define the start date for my task as August 2nd, 2021, and this task should be finished by end of the week in August, which would be August 6th. Sumita is a very expensive resource, but she does a quality work, and despite the fact that she charges me $100 per hour, I am willing to pay this rate because she does an amazing work. I am going to select the rate of 100 and put it into the column H, which I am going to format as dollar values. And I am going to select United States currency. I am estimating that it will take Sumita 7 hours to define marketing campaign goals, so my estimated cost can be calculated as multiplication of the rate, which would be value in the cell H2, multiplied by the units, which would be 7 hours, and the total estimated cost will be $700. The actual cost we will enter later, because it might take less or it might take more for Sumita to complete this work. Once we defined our first task, now is the time to define other tasks for initiation phase. In addition to defining marketing campaign goals, you potentially may need to do market research as well as competition research. You may also consider doing 2 additional tasks before starting the mainstream project, defining return on investment for the campaign, as well as identifying the vendor to create campaign creatives. Once we've identified the tasks, now is the time to assign them to initiation phase. We can do it by using the drop-down for each particular cell, starting in B3. Or we can just expand the drop-down to the area of the tasks that we've just created. Similar things for task IDs. Our first task has an ID of 1. We can manually type in IDs, or we can create an easy formula. For example, our formula might say equals cell A2 plus 1. And then we can just expand this formula until the end of the column. Let's look at the tasks you might consider doing as part of the proof of concept for marketing project. For example, you might consider piloting marketing video and blog post. You might also consider marketing published materials, as well as piloting creative materials. And once we've identified these tasks, we might consider adding them into the proof of concept phase. Now might be a good time to assign statuses for the tasks we've just created. Before you started working on the project, you might have completed a little bit of the market research, as well as researched the competition. So the correct status for these 2 tasks might be in progress. You also might have started discussions with the marketing department about the best ways to market videos and blog posts. So the correct status for that task also might be in progress. The rest of the tasks in this group probably would be in the non-started status. You also might consider assigning resources for these tasks. Typically, resource assignment indicates who owns the task and ultimately who is responsible for completing the task. Sometimes you may not have resources identified. For example, for the task 8, to pilot creative materials, I do not know who the person might be doing this particular work, so I assign TBD with the intent of later replacing to be determined with the actual resource assigned to own this particular task. When assigning dates, you might consider consulting with the calendar to make sure that the dates do not fall on the non-business days. You also might consider replicating the dates because some of the tasks assigned to different resources can be done in parallel. Some tasks, like identifying vendors for creative campaigns, might have a lot of unknowns and a lot of variables involved. You might consider giving yourself a longer period of time to run through this task. This helps create a buffer and allows you to complete this task on time. Typically, next phase of the project, like POC in our case, doesn't start until the previous initiation phase of the project is completed. Because last task of initiation phase is not scheduled to complete until August 31st of 2021, it might make sense to postpone starting tasks in proof of concept phase until at least the beginning of the September. Because different people running different tasks in the POC phase, we might consider running the tasks in parallel and giving them the same timeline. Different resources typically have different hourly rates associated with them. But some companies, when run projects, use the same rate, especially for full-time equivalent, basically for employees of the company, to simplify the process. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to replicate the rate for Sumita Reddy to all other resources. The mastery of the experienced project manager typically comes in with the experience to estimate the tasks. Here in the column I, we might want to put the estimate of how much time this particular task will actually take to complete. There are different rules and different ideas how this could be estimated. For contractors, typically you would want to put actual hours, basically the effort for the work. But for employees, a lot of times project managers just put the hours in between the dates. So for example, in between 8/9 and 8/12, which represent 4 work hours in August, the effort might be 32 hours. And this is something you might consider adding here for this particular task, assuming you have a dedicated resource, Nicole Jackson, working on that particular project and doing this particular task. And obviously, because the estimated cost is just the formula, we're going to replicate the values of the formula across all the cells in the column J. This way, Microsoft Excel automatically calculates the values for estimated cost. I just applied the same rule as I did for the task of market research to the tasks for competition research, define return on investment, as well as identifying the vendor. Basically took all the hours in the workday and put them into the units for the task so the estimated cost for the task can be completed. As I was doing reconciling, I also noticed that I mistakenly put POC task into August, which is incorrect. The intent is to start POC phase in September, once we're done with the initiation phase. I am going to quickly go ahead and change this from August to September. As you can see, this is extremely easy to do in Microsoft Excel. And as a last step, I am going to enter the hours for the POC phase. And once hours entered for the first task in POC phase, because dates are the same, I'm just going to replicate the hours across all remaining tasks. Typically, during the design phase of marketing campaign, you need to design artwork, define marketing messaging, create campaign video or multiple videos, as well as update company's website to reflect the content from the campaign. I'm going to extend the design phase indicator to all the tasks we've just added for the design phase. Because based on our plan, we are planning to hire external company to create this marketing materials and be responsible for all of these updates, I am going to add into the assigned to column TBD, and then expand the value to all the tasks in the design phase. I will do the same thing for the status, because this task has not been started yet. For the build phase of marketing campaign, we would like to focus on actually creating the artwork and all of the required marketing materials. During the build phase, we would like to create marketing campaign content, validate effectiveness of the campaign with senior leadership, since campaign represents the face of the company and is very important to marketing positioning of the organization. And based on these two validations, we would like to adjust the content and make changes to increase the success rate of marketing campaign. Once tasks have been defined, I am going to expand the build phase to all the tasks in this phase. It looks like we ran out of rows in my document, and I will do the copy by selecting the row 17, right mouse clicking on the row, selecting copy, and then selecting rows 18 through 22 and doing the paste. I'm going to clear off the content here by selecting the content and clicking the delete button. And now I'm ready to enter the remaining tasks for my project plan. Next phase of the project is the test phase. I'm going to select the test in the row 18. I also noticed that the header for my columns is not showing up anymore, so I'm going to fix the header. I will do it by selecting the row 1 and then navigating into View section, and then selecting Freeze Panes, and then selecting Freeze Top Row. So now when I scroll, I still see the content of the header in my top row. I'm also going to expand the content of the column C so I can see all the values in the column C. I'm going to do it by selecting the separator and expanding it a little bit to the right. Now you can see that the value in the cell C17 shows up completely and doesn't have any impact on the column D. Typically in the test phase of the campaign, once everything has been decided, you just do an editorial review of the content. You look at the spelling and the message itself and determine how well it resonates with your target audience. Now might be a good time to expand column C again to make sure everything fits, as well as put the status as non-started and find the right resources for the tasks. Since this is more of the internal tasks in the build phase, we need to assign the quality resources from the organization instead of relying on contractors and marketing company. To do that, I'm going to select my best resource on the team, Sumita Reddy, and then expand the value across rows 14 through 18. Sumita is also an excellent resource for editorial reviews of the content. She catches all the errors very quickly, so I assigned her this task as well as other tasks in the build phase. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful and helped you to solve your challenge. If you liked the content, please give this video a big thumbs up. This tells us that you need more content like this, and we will make sure to deliver it to you in the future. Also, please make sure to check out our free and premium resources on the website. All you need to do is to go to the menu section and select appropriate options. In addition, make sure you don't forget to look at the downloads in the description section of this video. I also recommend that you follow online training for everyone. We are constantly delivering new content to help you solve different problems and challenges. And I also have a favor to ask. If you know someone who would benefit from this content, please make sure to share this video with your friends or colleagues to help them solve their challenges. Make sure to leave your questions or suggestions in the comment section of this video. And all the best on your journey. Thanks for watching.